Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Pat. Believe me, it was a gift to me, too. Last night, you heard a very passionate man give a very passionate speech about what we do, our advocacy, our commitment, our dedication on behalf of all of us. This morning, I want to talk a little bit about the product of the journey we began almost 4 years ago, knowing that Friedrichs was in the pipeline, knowing what potential harm it could do to us and to the students whom we teach, and knowing that we really had to get down to business. And we did. It has been a long process, sometimes a painful one, because sometimes the truth hurts when we find out what we're not doing right, as well as what we are doing right. But it gave me pause to sit back and think about what I was going to say to all of you this morning about the product of those 4 years, what we have learned, perhaps not with the passion that you heard last night, but with facts. The value of fellowship, group affiliation, loyalty, and community were instilled in me at a very early time in my life. My father owned a kosher deli, so I know about as much as anyone about gefilte fish, really good pickles, whether they're half and halves or true dills, knishes, and knedlach, matzo ball soup. I know about Sunday morning breakfasts with bagels, bialys, stuffed derma, cream cheese, and lox. I learned how to debone a smoked whitefish with just a flick of the wrist and one tug and be left holding the skeleton because the whitefish is filled with bones. I learned that to really smooth out chopped liver, all you had to do was add one small mashed potato. And I still am using the tops of the pickle barrels that used to come into the deli, and I use them for cutting boards. I know something else too. A kosher deli, a New York deli, or wherever it happens to be, is about so much more than food. Indeed, it really was a place where people knew your name. Our deli was not in New York City. It was in the thriving Jewish metropolis of Ansonia, Connecticut. No one kicks who comes to Glick's. I have no idea why it was called Glick's, but that sign was there when my father bought into a partnership and was a sign when he retired. After years of serving bagels mit a schmear, rye toast and sanka, corned beef, pastrami, and Reubens, to customers in a restaurant that sat 90 people, and to lines of customers, lines that every noon meandered down the length of Main Street in Ansonia, filled with people picking up sandwich orders that had been called in first thing in the morning by the union workers at Farrell Foundry and Anaconda American Brass, by the students at the Valley Hairdressing Academy, and by the other business people along the traditional Main Street of what was then a very blue-collar and ethnically diverse industrial city in the Valley. And I know that gathering at a Jewish deli for that community was a place to complain, and they did, a place to vent, a place to brag, a place to discuss religion, a place to discuss politics, and a place to share humor. Most of the humor involved long, drawn-out, ever further embellished stories, and I can tell you a few, with hysterical endings about Sadie and Ida, about Moishi, about Jacob or Izzy. And there were plenty of one-liners too. For example, why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they'd be bagels. Terrible, but fun. So, the historian Jenna Weissman Josselet has observed that the New York deli transcended traditional divisions between different types of Jews. It made no difference if you were Orthodox, conservative, or Reform. People could literally break bread together, and often it was rye bread with caraway seeds, and forge a kinship and common identity. The deli was known as a place of friendship, community, loyalty, group affiliation, and cohesion. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg has studied the social significance of the deli, believe it or not. He describes it as a place that levels social distinctions, fosters civic engagement, and now provides a platform for mutual emotional support. And think about that. And you see where I'm going here? Because for me, I can definitely make that comparison between a kosher deli and a labor union. The deli's place in politics was big. For most of the 20th century, wooing the Jewish vote meant walking through Jewish neighborhoods and being photographed while eating a dill pickle or a kosher knish. Like society as a whole, the deli has been subjected to the world's changing force. All this is chronicled in a new book called Pastrami on Rye, an overstuffed history of the Jewish deli. Jewish assimilation, neighborhood change with people moving to the suburbs, the diversification of the American Jewish population, the constantly widening range of food choices all had a negative effect on the deli. In fact, there are very few real Jewish delis left, whether it be in New York City or anywhere for that matter. And there's an economic theory that says if something cannot go on forever, it will stop. Kind of like when you're on the highway and the person in front of you is driving you crazy, and you say, yes, if you go any slower, you will stop. And it's true. Because what it's meant is, if a trend cannot go on forever, it will stop of its own accord. It is often rephrased as, things that cannot continue won't. That notion was very much on my mind this year. As CEA strategized and launched initiatives in anticipation of the Friedrichs decision. Through all the planning, and yes, worry, I was never concerned that our union would ever be something that would not continue, but I was worried that it would continue in a different fashion and be made up very differently. But knowing that we would continue is how your leadership team approached the whole business of the Friedrichs case. Against the backdrop of the case's uncertainty, we looked at the possibilities. With time running short, we asked ourselves this: could we help our members connect the disconnect? The tendency of our rank and file members to be unfamiliar with our rich history, our critical mission, and our enduring values. Could we help our members connect themselves to the history, the mission, and the value of their local, their state, and their national unions? Ours, not yours, not mine, ours. The main and recurring question became, how do we determine and sustain union relevance for every one of our constituency groups? We conducted, as I mentioned last night, poll after poll, survey after survey, focus group after focus group to find out what mattered, what made us relevant, what actually did connect the disconnect. Connecting the disconnect means shedding a spotlight on all the positives about union membership, reminding our members that the union enables them to earn competitive wages and benefits, underscoring the importance of our rights in the workplace, looking forward to a secure retirement, having an increasingly significant voice in the workplace, and being proud that where union membership is strongest, our students are better off. First, connecting the disconnect means connecting the dots of individual members' positive experiences with their union. Second, it means recognizing how one positive union experience leads to another as we support and sustain one another. For example, CEA member Mary Ann Byrne is connecting the disconnect. She is a newer teacher who is on CEA's Legislative Commission as well as on the ad hoc new teacher committee. Mary Ann says that she is helping make change on a broad scale that benefits students and other teachers. Calling her CEA involvement empowering, she is connecting the disconnect. And that's what our CEA West Hartford teachers did when they took a trip down memory lane this year, celebrating 50 years since the implementation of collective bargaining in their contract. CEA retired member Tracy Wilson told her younger colleagues, "Unions continue to be under attack. We will only have rights if we all continue to work together." Oxford President Mary Ann Sporsick underscored the role of building reps when she attended CEA training for new leaders and her role as a new association president. "We can't do it alone," she said. And she learned that she doesn't have to, as she made all the connections that represent the support offered by CEA governance, by staff, and other local presidents. Networking, key, instrumental to becoming engaged. Empowering local professional development and evaluation committees, PDECs, has been a big focus for CEA, not only this year, but last year as well. This effort was not lost on CEA member Hillary Sterling, Torrington's PDEC chair. She said, "We need to have a voice in creating the education environment we work in. Now we have it, and now we are using it." And it is, and I can't quote anybody, I won't, but it is sometimes difficult to make all the legal assistance and contract enforcement the union provides real to everybody in the local, unless they happen to be one of those individuals close to the threatened termination or union dispute. This is one of those challenges we have to continually wrestle with as we help our colleagues connect the disconnect. But on the other hand, nothing could be more public than a court trial. And the Connecticut Coalition for Justice and Education Funding, CJEF, helped CEA members testify at the historic school funding trial in Hartford this year. CEA has been a long supporter of this coalition, and we were so proud when 3 of our members were asked to testify. Bridgeport teachers Greg Furlong and Gary Pelichetti worked with the coalition and testified in court this year. Greg Furlong did not mince words when he told the judge, "None of my students are getting the amount of intervention they need in order to catch up multiple grade levels. We just don't have the personnel." Library media specialist Elaine Gencarelli testified about the difference in resources between Greenwich and Danbury, having had the experience of teaching in both of those districts. And that's what I call connecting the disconnect, because CEA's advocacy for good learning conditions for children make for good working conditions for the teachers. Our union connections range from the collective to the individual. For Trumbull teacher Richard Blank, nothing was more individual and personal than his license to teach, and he would have lost his teaching license without critical union intervention. Richard says, "I couldn't imagine the tough spot my family and I would be in. I now have much needed insight as to why our union exists and the immense help it can be." It's connecting the disconnect. North Haven CEA member Ellie Mulligan had a somewhat similar experience. After more than a decade on the job, she faced losing her job to a reduction in force, a RIF. And with union help, she was able to finally secure her job. With that firsthand experience, she didn't hesitate to jump in and became a building rep because she understood the value of membership. Across the state in Norwich, CEA members felt they were coming up short when it came to preventing and responding to assaults. So they called upon CEA resources and training. Teachers sometimes think it's part of their job to tolerate physical assaults by students, said Norwich school social worker Kelsey Lofgren. Teachers shouldn't feel scared to go to work every day. Even our prospective teachers and our brand new teachers are connecting the disconnect. We have initiated a new program with help from NEA called Degrees, Not Debt. In it, CEA student and teacher members are participating in CEA training about how to help lower their monthly student loan payments and ways that they may qualify for public service loan forgiveness. We connect the disconnect and relate to what our members are personally dealing with when we help dissipate that tremendous financial responsibility borne by our recent graduates. Still, other members find other ways if that is not something that personally affects them. Retired teacher Karen O'Connell regularly shares news about important CEA victories at the Capitol with her colleagues via Facebook. CEA membership empowers you. Just ask teacher Victoria Thompson from New London, or Mia Dimbo from Bridgeport, or Juanita Harris from Danbury, or Anthony Thompson from Stamford, or Ted Gerner, West Hartford, Annie Irvin, East Hartford. They are among the many members who got involved in the legislative process this year, corresponding with legislators, testifying at hearings, and speaking out to the media. Leadership connects the disconnect when we realize that dissent does not mean disloyalty. The critical task of leadership is to protect space for the expression of doubt. We connect the disconnect when we take ownership that requires us to believe in the possibility that we are able to create a better future for our affiliates, our communities, our members, and our students. We connect the disconnect when we acknowledge that possibility means allowing ourselves to be pulled by a new conversation for living in the future, for problem solving, and for making improvements upon the past. We connect the disconnect when we focus on all the gifts around us, when we bring the gifts of those on the margin into the center, and when we value inclusivity and diversity. We connect the disconnect when we frame our conversations and our future through the questions we choose to ask. Good questions work on us. We don't work on them. They are not a project to be completed, but rather a pathway to a greater depth of understanding and action for the future we desire. We connect the disconnect when we make a promise that is independent of either approval or reciprocity from others. A true commitment, ladies and gentlemen, is a promise with no expectation of return. As long as our promise, as Mark mentioned last night, is dependent upon the action of others, it is not a commitment. It is a deal simply to bring the past forward. We must stop being afraid to challenge the promises that others make to us and then forget about once they get elected. There is a rising swell of affirmation that our union matters. Through personal experiences like those I just talked about, and through collective action, membership matters. Through comprehensive staff and resources that CEA provides to our local affiliates, our union does make a difference. Our union backs our teaching friends and colleagues. Our union supports members when somebody says, this isn't right, and our union sustains us. So let me circle back to where I began, the Jewish deli experience. Yes, the deli hasn't declined, but the cultural icon, the historical movement that brought it to life, is gathering new steam. Many young Jewish chefs and entrepreneurs are being creative, opening restaurants that add new twists to the old Yiddish recipes they remember their grandparents and great-grandparents making. It is in that spirit of rebirth and respect for history that we must continue to reinvigorate our union, especially among our new members. Many new members are not familiar with our history and the continuing need for a unionized teaching profession. However, it is clear that our new teachers want the same things we all want: the chance to exhibit their passion for teaching and help all students achieve. A well-supported and financed public education system, competitive salaries and benefits, high-quality professional development and support, and a genuine voice in our profession. Our priority is to ensure them that they should never see our union as they, but should always see it as we. We want new members and all members to feel and to see a daily connection to our union, our association, our organization, and in everything that we have done this year. These truths are self-evident and ever-present. Our work is a mission. Our commitment is a sign of our passion. Our love fills our hearts as we endeavor to make our public schools even better for our students, for every student, and for the profession. We are teachers. This is what we do. This is who we are. This is our passion. This is what we love. And this is why we stand together to make things happen, stronger together. We must continue to connect the disconnect. We must continue to pay homage to those upon whose shoulders we stand, shoulders like those of Mother Jones. We must remember that without organized labor and organized professionals, the middle class will indeed disappear, and in order to grow, we must grow stronger together, and we must stand together. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard me say this last year, and I'm going to repeat it this year. You are the wind. CEA is the ship. Without you, the sails of our ship cannot be filled in order to cut through the tides of corporate reform. CEA is the lighthouse, and without you, we cannot shine the light of truth in public education. CEA is the eagle, and you are the wind beneath our wings. Without you, we cannot fly. Without you, we cannot soar. Without you, we cannot rise and stand up to the corporate bullies, the bullies who say they are for each child, but they don't want each child in their schools. They create country club schools. They choose which students get membership. They resegregate neighborhoods. They institutionalize racism. They are the bullies who care more about money than they care about the spirit of youth, the inspiration of creativity, the dream weaving of hope, the necessity of innovation, and the quality of the character of the future generation of America. You must be the wind. You must be the saving grace of public education. You must be the heart of social justice. And you must never forget whose shoulders you stand upon. We must be stronger together. Ladies and gentlemen, we are strong. We are dedicated, we are committed, we are passionate, we are professional, we are the union, we are CEA, we are the teachers, and we are stronger together. Thank you.